Well, it's a rule. I think I'm always bad with the exact nomenclature, but I think it's 1071. But it's a rule where they have to disclose data on small business lending, similar, analogous, you'd say, to mortgage reporting.
Right. Absolutely.
But it is, looking at it another way, and from a more critical perspective, it is another mandate. It's more regulation, it's more reporting, it's more paperwork, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, being done by organizations that say they're already stretched thin. So depending on how you look at this, it is either a welcome addition. So now we can have some transparency into who is getting small business loans and who might not be getting small business loans, right. Or it's just more burden.
Yeah, the backstory is this was passed out of the Great Recession. It's been almost 10 years that they've done this, and we can certainly understand looking at data for house mortgages. When you look on a block, it's all homogeneous, that one house and one loan. But the problem you're going to have is you have a $150,000 loan to a friend of mine. He's a second generation Firestone dealer, and he gets a $150,000 loan. He's been in location for 30, 40 years. You compare that to someone who wants to open up a donut shop across the street, and the data is going to look the same. It's $150,000. Why did he get the loan and someone else did not? And the problem, I don't think lenders are universally against this. I don't think the problem is necessarily collecting the data. We can collect that. The problem is it's going to open up a whole list of litigation and additional regulation from the regulators. And that's exactly what you said, John.
Yeah. Well, we talked about analogous to mortgage lending, and what is going on now with the Department of Justice, and it's involves. I think right now they have investigations and or settlements, redlining. This is redlining with dozens of banks.
Right.
Dozens. I know that recently the Attorney General himself mentioned, talked about this and mentioned. I think I should have looked it up. I'm sorry I didn't, but he said that there were active investigations going on at dozens of banks, and when you add that to the number of banks that have settlements, which in every case they denied culpability.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Sue to settle.
We're not going to be able to fight City Hall, and we don't want this to drag on and on and on. So we're going to settle. That's let's say 50 banks. I mean, you have to raise a question in your head: are that many banks discriminatory? Are their practices discriminatory? And do you want to, if you're a bank, is that what you want to see migrate to small business lending?
Well, John, we've certainly covered the CDFIs where the mandate is 60% of their portfolio has to go to underserved markets. Right. SBA does not have that type of mandate, but they do have the mandate to do underserved markets. And you can certainly see it's going to become a gray, murky area when you have a government guaranteed loan program where the government's your partner and the banks are private sector. And as you said, John, you may disagree vehemently, and I know lenders who settle, they do, but they're saying, we'll just settle and move on because the cost of litigation and exposure is too great.
Well, it really is a fascinating situation. You don't, in mortgages, you have this history of literal declining and massively discriminatory practices. That's not necessarily present in small business lending.
That is so great because SBA was founded on, I talked to one individual, and I'm getting a little off topic, but after the riots back in '68, it said SBA was the leader in solving that problem in terms of rebuilding those communities. So there is a strong history of, you talk about an underserved market, and SBA put the money on the ground to rebuild those communities, and that quelled that with those promises, that quelled the problem. Anyway, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
No, but I mean that's a very good point. That same history isn't there that was there in housing. They didn't have an FHA,
Right.
with their books saying, don't do this, don't do that. Um, and SBA goes back to the very early 1950s, 1953. So you have a 70-year history of lending to small businesses. On the other hand, if you drive through cities and in other places, you can see the areas where it just doesn't seem like much of anything is getting through to certain areas. And I guess that it's present in a lot of cities. Small businesses would struggle there. And I was just talking to one banker who said they made an SBA loan to someone who got turned down. I think I forget the number, but more than a dozen times for loans, and then they made them a loan. So you have situations like that. That's dangerous to just pop in an anecdote and try to illustrate a very complex issue with a single anecdote. So probably I should have done that, but there are those anecdotes there.
No, John, you're broaching on a subject that's near and dear and to my heart. It's just tragic to drive through these neighborhoods and see all these stores boarded up, and what will solve it is capital. Now, there needs to be infrastructure, but first of all, you have to have the lenders willing to provide the capital in those areas, and obviously that's not being done. Lance, I'm going to let you jump in here.
Well, I just, I think as a rule, most SBA lenders I know won't have issue with this, assuming that it's just a collection tool to find out, who's getting small business loans. I've never known of an institution that, one of the things about the cornerstone of small business lending is cash flow. SBA loan programs are cash flow lending programs. They're not collateral programs, so they don't really care if you have a building in a prominent area of the community, as long as you can show you have the cash flow to repay the loan. So, and with SBA's push for smaller loans and underserved market loans, I think the banks will look good in these areas.
Well, especially if you're involved in the SBA lending niche. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Well, very good. I love to ask the question because I love to see John squirm, but I'll let him off the hook. Obviously, this is more of a sense of Congress. Nothing's going to happen. I do know that it's going to be interesting. The Supreme Court has they're reviewing it in terms of whether the structure is constitutionally valid, and that's off the scope of what we talk about here. But this has been ongoing for 10 years, and it's be coming to a head, I think, one way or the other, John.
Yes, well, this is something that was part of the I don't want to say charter, but this was something that they were tasked with doing right from the start. It took them a long time to do it, but they worked on mortgages first, and all of this is complex stuff. So I don't think they really deserve any criticism for the time it took them. You would rather have someone take more time and
I'm not criticizing for the time at all. I'm just making an observation. It's taken them this long, and that's all that I'm saying.
But they did jump into mortgages first, and that a very contentious. You have to say, go back to their work in mortgages. It was a very contentious, and it took a long time, to get that sorted out. If you say it got sorted out, but and now they're. Now they're picking up here with small businesses, but it'll be, I hope, Lance, you're right. I do hope that they will look good, because I really don't think in this day and age there are a lot of bankers at all, and certainly not a lot of banks that are purposefully discriminatory.
No, that's
no. Yeah, I agree with you, John. Yeah, I'm sorry, Lance, go ahead.
I've worked in several banks, and I have never had somebody have an issue with a small business loan in a particular area or to a particular demographic. We all worry about cash flow. Can they pay the payments? That's the main thing, guys. And so I think SBA lenders across the country are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
John, at our event, which I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday in the SBA Secondary Market Summit. I'm not going to disclose who all is going to be attending, but I will be saying the reason why we have it in Washington is that we were able to get the government participation. Now, SBA will be there. They're on the agenda. That's certainly disclosed, and a big shout out and nod to them to come talk to lenders about what's happening in the secondary market. But our event is also attracting interest from other agencies, John, and I know you're going to be there, so you may enjoy following up with some of those individuals.
Yes, how the ears open, yeah.
Well, very good. Well, John, it's good to see you. I'm so glad we have you on camera.
Yes.
That is awesome. Let's see, it's sort of a light news day, but we wanted to talk about ratings. And Lance, I'm going to throw this at you because some of these are in your back door. But Lance, I'm going to let you comment on it. John, I'd like to know your feelings about this also. What we're doing is we're going through and we're putting the top, we're ranking all the lenders directly from the SBA data. These are the top 10 from Mississippi. We have every Mississippi lender in there. But one of the things both John and Lance are finding, there's a lot of smaller banks that are in the top 10 that are representing their communities very, very well. John, I don't know, have you had a chance to look at any of these rankings? Or, for example, here, People's Bank, obviously, I guess you would call them a regional bank. Is that a fair statement? And
I think that's, you could call them a community, maybe a regional bank. I was a little surprised they were number one, but because I guess I should, but I don't look at the rankings on a state by state basis. But I was just interested. Byline Bank, all the way in Chicago, is there on the list. So and obviously Live Oak is there on the list.
Right.
Well, one of the things that I love to see here, Bob, is our friends, and not that everybody on this list is not a friend, but the people at People's Bank I've known for years, and they're doing a great job in SBA lending and have several good friends over there. Another interesting one is a bank from my backyard, First Financial Bank in Arkansas, is on the list, but I think First Financial Bank mostly does. I don't know if they still are heavy in poultry lending, but they were at one point. So that could be the response. But it's good to see.
No one is heavy in poultry lending in 2023. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, Bob, it's still going on. You have to remember, I live in Tyson world here, and there's still plenty of poultry houses being built and plenty of poultry loans taking place. Not surprised to see the nationals like Live Oak and Byline and Celtic Bank. They're on most state lists, but looks like a pretty good representation of small community banks on this group.
Yes.
Yeah. Montana, smaller numbers, but again, smaller lenders are in there. Glacier Bank, First Interstate Bank's a community bank up in Montana. And right. Then, and I love it, Bank of Bridger. And there you go. You got one Arkansas bank up there, Lance.
My buddy Nick over at Stone Bank did one in Montana. Good job, Nick.
So, and finally, North Carolina, obviously Live Oak Bank based in Wilmington. Whoa, Michael, what are you doing to me? There you go.
Yeah.
And G Bank, they're heavily based in hospitality and real estate, so they've done well there, and you can see some of the other ones there. Anyway, John, anything jump out to you with those numbers?
Well, I'm looking at the North Carolina list, and I see the Huntington Bank, which is the number one bank,
North Carolina, yeah,
by number of loans, not by dollar amount. So Live Oak is the big dollar lender. But you can see that they have generally a smaller loan size than most of the other banks, not just in North Carolina, but on all of those lists. So they're by no means the smallest, but they continue to push for small loans, small dollar loans in Huntington.
And we'll round up, but there you go. North Dakota is represented. Not very well, but they're represented. There's some institutions, I confess, I haven't heard of, John.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's still, 40 some hundred community banks in the country. So you're not going to You're not going to. There's always going to be many that you don't know. Probably more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's nice to see the diversity in terms of the smaller lenders are involved with the SBA lending program. What that tells me, Lance, is the program is manageable for lenders who dabble in it, who just want to.
Oh yeah.
A community bank who want to do it, and and they're not worried about the guarantee, and that's good news for the industry and the local community bank and the local economy, Lance.
Well, and banks that just want to get in and do a few, there are great LSPs out there that can help them if they need help with the process. But it's it's good to see such a wide array of banks represented on the North Dakota list, guys. Because if you'll notice, the big guys are not really on this list very much. It's a lot of community banks.
Yeah, it's very good. Well, very good, Lance. Real quick, tell us what you're doing Wednesday.
Well, we're doing a webinar on how to deal with your problem SBA loans. As we all know, I saw a great article, John and Bob, talking about a potential series of interest rate decreases next year, which would be very exciting. But we had that 5% rate increase, which has caused a lot of problems for small businesses. So what do you do when a small business owner calls you up and says, I can't make my payments? We're going to talk about various servicing actions that you need to be aware of as an SBA participant lender to help the borrower through a difficult time and hopefully keep them performing on their SBA loan. So make sure and get your servicing team or your SBA team signed up for this.
We are not going to live stream the entire event on Thursday. We will be live streaming on YouTube a couple of sessions. So check that out, and that will be some very interesting content. And John, I know you attended last year, but this is the only event that focuses specifically on this niche, and there's some very much alpha people in the room. So it is there are no shrinking violets, and it is very easy to get discussions going. So it's always, I know Lance, you've spoken at the event in the past, and John, I'm looking forward to having your participation again Thursday. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great Monday.